Before we begin, make sure you're somewhere quiet. Turn off the lights. Put on your headphones. Because the stories you're about to hear aren't just scary. These are the kinds of experiences people don't talk about. If you enjoy true horror stories, unsettling encounters, and disturbing events that happen to real people, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's begin. I've never liked the sound of rain at night. Most people find it calming. White noise. Something that helps them sleep. For me, rain has always felt like a cover. Like something meant to hide footsteps, breathing, movement. It muffles the world just enough that you can convince yourself you're alone when you're not. The night this happened, the rain was relentless. It wasn't a gentle drizzle. It was the kind that pounds the ground hard enough to blur your vision when you look out a window. The streetlights outside my apartment bled yellow halos into the darkness, each drop streaking through the glow like falling ash. Thunder rolled in the distance, not loud enough to be dramatic, just constant enough to remind you that something was moving out there. I lived alone back then, in a small ground-floor apartment on the edge of town. The kind of place you move into when you don't have many options. Cheap rent, thin walls, old plumbing, and a neighborhood that felt abandoned after midnight. My bedroom window faced a narrow alley that ran between my building and an empty lot overgrown with weeds and broken fencing. That alley was always dark. No street light. No cameras. Just wet concrete, trash, and the sound of rain echoing between brick walls. I had just gotten into bed when I heard the knock. It wasn't loud. It wasn't urgent. Just 3 slow taps against my front door. Tap. 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 I checked my phone. 1:47 a.m. Nobody knocks on your door at almost 2 in the morning unless something is wrong. At first, I didn't move. I lay there listening, my heart thudding softly in my chest, rain hammering the roof. I told myself it was probably a neighbor. Maybe someone locked out. Maybe someone drunk and confused. Then came the second knock. Tap. 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 Same rhythm. Same calm pace. That was what bothered me most. Whoever was out there wasn't in a hurry. They weren't panicked. They were patient. I slipped out of bed and moved quietly toward the door, careful not to turn on any lights. The apartment was dark except for the dim glow from the kitchen window. I leaned toward the peephole. Nothing. Just darkness and rain. The porch light outside my door had been broken for months, and the landlord never fixed it. I couldn't see a face. I couldn't see a body. Just the vague outline of wet concrete reflecting lightning from somewhere far away. Hello? I called, my voice barely louder than a whisper. No response. For a moment, I felt stupid. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe the rain had warped the wood and the sound wasn't even real. Then I heard it. Breathing. Soft. Controlled. Right on the other side of the door. My stomach dropped. Who is it? I asked, my voice shaking now. There was a pause. A long one. Long enough that I wondered if I'd imagined the breathing too. Then a man spoke. Please, he said quietly. I need help. His voice was calm, but there was something off about it. No strain. No desperation. Just flat. Measured. I think someone is following me. The rain filled the silence that followed, roaring like static in my ears. Every instinct told me not to open that door. Every true crime podcast, every horror story, every warning screamed in my head at once. I asked him where he came from. The alley, he replied instantly. That made my skin crawl. Nobody comes from that alley at night. There's nothing back there but weeds and rusted fencing. No houses. No businesses. Can you call the police? I asked. Another pause. I already tried, he said. My phone's dead. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the narrow gap under the door. I could see water pooling near his shoes. He was standing close. Too close. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the way the rain made everything feel unreal, like I was dreaming. Maybe it was the fear that if I didn't help him, something terrible would happen. I unlocked the door. I only opened it a few inches. The man standing there was soaked from head to toe. Rain dripped from his hair, his jacket, his hands. He looked normal at first glance. Mid-30s. Average height. No visible injuries. But his eyes were wrong. They weren't wide with fear. They weren't darting around. They were locked onto me with a steady, unblinking focus that made my throat tighten. "Thank you," he said softly. That was when I noticed something else. There were no footprints leading up to my door. The concrete was wet everywhere except the small patch directly beneath his feet. Dry. As if he had been standing there for a long time before I ever heard the knock. "I just need to stay inside until the rain lets up," he continued. "Whoever it is won't come out in this weather." My hand tightened on the door. I told him he couldn't come in. I said I'd call the police for him instead. For the first time, his expression changed. Not to anger. To disappointment. "That won't help," he said. "They won't get here in time." A loud crack of thunder shook the building, and the lights flickered. Just for a second. But in that second, the hallway behind me went completely dark. When the lights came back, he was closer. Not stepping closer. Already closer. His hand rested against the doorframe now, fingers long and pale, nails unusually clean. "I don't want to hurt you," he said. "But I don't like being left in the rain." I slammed the door shut and locked it, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped the key. I backed away, heart racing, listening as the rain swallowed everything again. For a moment, there was nothing. Then I heard footsteps. Not on the porch. Moving away. Toward the alley. I stood there for several minutes, staring at the door, waiting for another knock. It never came. Eventually, I convinced myself it was over. I checked the windows. All locked. I returned to my bedroom, leaving the lights on this time, and lay awake listening to the rain until exhaustion pulled me under. I woke up to silence. No rain. No thunder. Just the dull hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic. Morning light crept through the blinds. For a few seconds, I felt relief. The kind you feel after a nightmare, when reality settles back into place. Then I noticed the smell. Damp. Earthy. Like wet soil. I sat up slowly. There were muddy footprints on my bedroom floor. Leading from the window to my bed. And right beside my pillow, pressed deep into the mattress, was a handprint. Dry. Perfectly dry. As if whoever made it had never been standing in the rain at all. I used to work the night shift at a roadside motel off a 2-lane highway that most people only used when they were trying to avoid traffic or avoid being seen. It was called the Red Willow Inn, though there were no red willows anywhere near it. Just wet asphalt, flickering neon, and a stretch of forest so dense it swallowed sound. On rainy nights, headlights would vanish into the trees like they were being pulled under. I worked there for 6 months. That was 6 months too long. Rainy nights were the worst. Business slowed to almost nothing, and the building would creak and groan as if it were settling into itself. The kind of place where every sound feels intentional. Every shadow feels watched. This happened on a Tuesday night in late October. It had been raining since sunset. Not heavy rain, steady, cold rain that soaked into your clothes and never let go. The parking lot was empty except for my car and a rusted pickup that hadn't moved in weeks. The office smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee. At around 12:30 a.m., the power flickered. Just once. Then the phone rang. That alone was strange. We almost never got calls after midnight, and when we did, it was usually someone asking for directions and hanging up halfway through. I picked up. No one spoke. All I could hear was rain. Not background noise, close rain. Loud. Like the caller was standing outside. "Hello?" I said. The rain continued. Then, faintly, I heard breathing. Slow. Wet. I asked who was calling. After several seconds, a woman spoke. "I need a room," she said. "Just for the night." Her voice sounded distant, like she was speaking from the bottom of a stairwell. I told her we had availability and asked how many people were staying. "Just me," she said. "And my husband." There was a pause. "And our son." Something about the way she added that last part felt wrong. Like it wasn't meant to be said out loud. I asked when they'd be arriving. "We're already there," she replied. My stomach tightened. I glanced at the security monitor beside the desk. The camera showed the front lot clearly. Rain streaked across the lens. The lot was empty. "I don't see you," I said. Another pause. "You will," she said. The line went dead. Before I could process what had just happened, the front office doorbell rang. Once. Sharp and loud. I stood frozen behind the desk, staring at the glass doors. Rainwater ran down them in thick sheets, distorting everything outside. I couldn't see anyone through the glass. The bell rang again. This time, longer. I forced myself to move. As I approached the doors, I could make out shapes through the rain-blurred glass. 3 figures. A man. A woman. A child. They were standing perfectly still. I unlocked the door and opened it a crack. They didn't move. The woman was pale, unnaturally pale, and soaked, her hair plastered to her face. The man stood slightly behind her, his head tilted at an awkward angle. The boy clutched her hand tightly, his eyes fixed on the floor. "We called," the woman said. I nodded and stepped aside to let them in. They didn't drip water. That was the first thing I noticed. Despite the rain pouring outside, the floor beneath them stayed dry. Their clothes looked soaked, but nothing fell from them. No puddles. No damp footprints. I handed them the register and asked for ID. The man slowly raised his head. His eyes were completely black. Not dark brown. Not shadowed. Black. Like someone had scooped everything human out of them. "We don't have that," he said. His voice didn't match his face. It was too calm. Too even. I told them I couldn't rent a room without identification. The boy looked up then. His mouth opened slightly, as if he wanted to speak, but the woman squeezed his hand hard enough that his fingers bent backward at an unnatural angle. "He doesn't like when people say no," she said softly. The lights flickered again. Just once. When they steadied, the family was closer to the desk. They hadn't walked. They were just closer. I felt my chest tighten. Every instinct screamed that something was deeply wrong. "I'll call my manager," I said, reaching for the phone. The man placed his hand flat on the counter. It left a mark. Not a print. A burn. The smell of scorched wood filled the air. "You already let us in," he said. "That's enough." The boy finally spoke. "We just need somewhere to sleep," he whispered. "It's raining where we came from too." I don't remember deciding to give them a room. I only remember holding the key card in my hand and watching them walk toward room 6, the one at the far end of the building. The rain grew louder as soon as they left the office. Thunder rolled directly overhead, shaking the windows. I locked the doors and sat behind the desk, staring at the security monitor. Room 6 didn't appear on camera. Not as a blind spot. It was just missing. The hallway ended at room 5. I checked the building map. Room 6 was still listed. I was about to call the police when the phone rang again. Same line. Same sound of rain. This time, the boy spoke. "We can hear you," he said. "You shouldn't watch us." The security monitor went black. Every light in the office shut off at once. In the darkness, I heard footsteps. Wet. Barefoot. Moving toward the office from the hallway that no longer existed. I ran. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I didn't look back. I didn't clock out. I peeled out of the lot, tires skidding on wet pavement. The next day, I quit. 2 weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I drove past the motel during the day. The Red Willow Inn was gone. Not abandoned. Gone. Just an empty lot and a line of trees dripping with rain. There had never been a motel there. But sometimes, late at night, when it rains hard enough, I still get calls from unknown numbers. When I answer, all I hear is rain. And a child asking if I have a room. I've never told anyone this story using my real name, and I'm not going to start now. What happened to me didn't feel like something supernatural at first. That's the worst part. It felt normal, the kind of thing you brush off because you don't want to seem paranoid. By the time I realized something was wrong, it was already too late to stop it. This happened on a rainy Friday night, 3 years ago. I was driving home from my girlfriend's apartment just after midnight. We had argued, nothing major, just one of those quiet arguments where neither person wins. I remember leaving feeling annoyed and distracted, replaying the conversation in my head. The rain had started about an hour earlier. Not a storm. Just constant, soaking rain that blurred streetlights and turned every road into a mirror. I took the back roads to avoid traffic. It was faster, and I'd driven them hundreds of times before. At least, I thought I had. About 20 minutes into the drive, my GPS recalculated. "Make a right turn," it said. The road it pointed me toward was narrow and unlit, disappearing into a stretch of trees. I hesitated. I didn't recognize it. But the rain was getting heavier, and I didn't feel like arguing with a machine. I turned. The moment my tires hit that road, my phone lost signal. No bars. No data. The road stretched on far longer than it should have. Trees pressed in from both sides, their branches arching overhead like ribs. Rain hammered against my windshield so hard it sounded like gravel. Then I saw headlights behind me. At first, I was relieved. It meant I wasn't completely alone out there. The car stayed far back, its lights dim and steady. No high beams. No sudden movements. We drove like that for several minutes. Then I slowed down. The headlights didn't. They stayed the same distance behind me, perfectly matched to my speed. I sped up slightly. They did too. I slowed again. Still there. I told myself it was coincidence. That's when the road ended. Not gradually. It just stopped. The asphalt dissolved into a flooded dirt clearing. Rain pooled so deeply it reflected the trees like black glass. I slammed on the brakes, heart pounding. The headlights behind me shot off. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, listening to the rain and my own breathing. Then someone knocked on my window. I screamed. A man stood inches from the glass, his face pale and slack, water streaming down his cheeks. He wasn't holding an umbrella. He wasn't blinking. I cracked the window just enough to speak. "You okay?" he asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. I asked where the road led. He tilted his head slowly, like he was considering the question for the first time. "It doesn't," he said. "You turned too early." I asked how to get back. He pointed behind me, toward the trees. "Just reverse," he said. "Don't turn around." That should have been my cue to leave immediately. Instead, I hesitated. Because behind him, emerging from the rain, I saw the car that had been following me. It was parked at the edge of the clearing, engine off. Its doors were open. No one was inside. My chest tightened. The man noticed where I was looking and smiled faintly. "They're already here," he said. I locked my doors and threw the car into reverse. The man didn't move. He stayed right where he was, standing in the rain, watching me back away. His smile never changed. The moment I turned the wheel to avoid hitting a tree, my headlights flickered. When they came back on, he was gone. So was the clearing. I was back on the road. The normal road. Streetlights. Power lines. Familiar landmarks. I pulled over and sat there shaking, trying to convince myself I'd imagined everything. Stress. Fatigue. Rain playing tricks on my eyes. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You weren't supposed to turn around." I drove home without stopping. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few weeks, strange things started happening. I'd hear rain tapping against my windows even on clear nights. My GPS would randomly reroute itself toward roads I didn't recognize. Once, while stopped at a red light, I saw the same car from that night idling across the intersection, doors open, headlights off. When I looked again, it was gone. The messages started after that. Always from different numbers. Always short. "Still raining where you are. You missed your turn." They don't like being ignored. I changed my number. Deleted my GPS apps. Took different routes home every night. It didn't matter. The dream started next. Every night, I was back on that road. Rain pouring. Trees closing in. Headlights behind me, getting closer this time. In the dreams, I never stopped the car. I always kept driving. Until I woke up choking, my sheets soaked like I'd been standing in the rain. The last message came exactly 1 year later. It arrived during a thunderstorm. "You made it home," it said. Most people don't. I moved shortly after that. New city. New job. New routines. But when it rains heavily enough, my phone still loses signal. And sometimes, when I'm driving late at night, my GPS will speak on its own. "Make a right turn," it says. I never do. Because I know now. Some roads aren't meant to take you somewhere. They're meant to keep you.